What's up, everyone? It's Saturday, January 21st. The season has been over for the Seattle Seahawks for a week now, so we've all had time to digest and really think about everything that happened this year and really kind of get an opportunity to settle on how we feel about this. And obviously, this offseason is going to be a little different from previous off seasons in that the team seems like it's not good enough anymore. Every year since Russell Wilson got here, 2012 on, we have gone into the offseason feeling like we were rooting for a really special, really good team that had the capability of, with a little bit of injury luck, winning the Super Bowl the next year. We won one Super Bowl. We played in another. We've won at least one playoff game every year. And generally speaking, at the end of every season, I felt like next year, if we stay healthy, we can win. This year, we're not that far off or anything. I'm not going to completely panic or anything like that. That would be silly, but it's a little different this year. We have a lot of holes on this team. We have clear issues with this roster. We may have to replace some coaches. And I feel like that even if we go into next season with this team and stay healthy, I don't think we can win the Super Bowl. Maybe we can contend for a playoff berth and a playoff win and all that, but I think things have changed. So before I get into all of that stuff and all of the other kind of scary stuff going into this offseason, like we might lose the second round pick because we were fucking around with the injury report with Richard Sherman, which pisses me off. Just follow the freaking rules. I know a lot of other teams do it too, and they don't get punished, and we might, and that's another problem in and of itself. But just follow the rules. And we probably knew we were skirting the rules when we did it, and we were willing to accept the punishment if it was going to come. But it just pisses me off. Anyway, yeah, there are a couple things to be concerned about this offseason. I don't know if Cam Chancellor is going to be here next year. I don't know if Jimmy Graham is going to be here next year. There might be one or two other players who we would like to let go, but we can't really, financially it doesn't work, like Jeremy Lane and Jermaine Kearse. But before I got into all the negative, I wanted to take this video to talk about the positives, the stuff to be appreciative of from this last season leading into the next one, because for all the stuff that Seahawks fans are going to say over the next few months as this team comes together for next year, there's still a lot to be grateful for. Let's start with the offense. Look, Russell Wilson had his worst season since he was a rookie. In terms of expectations, he was considerably worse this year. His accuracy was clearly down. He didn't make as many big plays. His yards per attempt were down. His touchdowns were down. His interceptions would have been fine if not for the stupid Green Bay game. But really, it was a disappointing season for him after what he did last year, especially in the second half last year. And for him to come back to earth like this was it was disappointing. But despite having a disappointing season, despite playing through 3 different injuries, which accounts for a big reason why he struggled, we are still talking about a quarterback who had 2 touchdowns for every pick he threw. 65% of his passes were completed, over 4,200 yards. And again, one really shitty game really drug down his stats. If you take out the Green Bay game, he's got like 20 touchdowns and 6 picks. Very strong numbers. So despite playing through 3 different injuries, leg, ankle, bicep, he still played well, and we should be appreciative of the fact that our quarterback can play this well and still be disappointing. Backfield. There's going to be a lot of consternation about our backfield next year. I can tell you that right now. A lot of people are going to want us to add somebody new. They're not going to trust the people that we currently have. So looking at what we currently have, let's appreciate the fact that we got 3 guys who can play football at an NFL level. Thomas Rawls, we know what he can do. Some days he doesn't do it. I don't really think it's his fault. I don't see how anybody could blame him for the struggles he has in some of these games. CJ Procise, clearly capable of playing and doing a lot of really awesome, cool things when he's out there. We'd like to see a little more of him, but his body might not be able to take it. We'll find out. But clearly capable of having a good impact on a team. And Alex Collins, a decent backup running back who has shown that he can do some things out there. He's a good pass catcher out of the backfield. He's hopefully will grow into being a good blocker. So those three guys, two of them haven't done a lot in the NFL. Two of them are really injury prone. So instead of focusing for a moment on how flawed these guys are, let's focus on the fact that they can play some football and that if they can stay healthy for a full season, can really do some nice things for us, I think. Offensively, also, Doug Baldwin. Let's not lose track of the incredible run Doug Baldwin has been on the last 2 years, despite his despite the offensive struggles this season. 94 catches, over 1,100 yards, 7 touchdowns, on an offense where we didn't score that many touchdowns. He was 7 touchdowns on this offense is a lot. Last year he scored 14, and that was a lot. But this year, scaling things, 7 touchdowns, very good. He's just always out there getting open. Who gets open better than Doug Baldwin, except for Antonio Brown? Nobody. Maybe there are a couple who get open as good, like Odell Beckham Jr. and Des Bryant, but nobody is getting open better than Doug, except for Antonio Brown. Jimmy Graham, we still got him. I don't know if he'll be here. Let's not completely throw out the fact that Jimmy Graham broke tight end records for this team. 65 catches, 923 yards, 6 touchdowns. Some of the best numbers that any Seahawks tight end has ever put up. And despite our problems with how much we use him, which is not nearly enough, he would have had a 1,000-yard season if he was not limited the first few weeks of the season because of the injury. He would have had 1,000 yards. I absolutely believe that if he wasn't very limited against Miami and St. Louis in week 1 and week 2. So let's not completely discount what he did do, even if it wasn't as much as we would have liked. Tyler Lockett, crossing my fingers that he is ready for the season next year. I'm not positive. I feel like there's a pretty good chance of it, but who knows what he'll be. But he had a good season, guys. When he was healthy, he was every bit the guy we were expecting to have this season. He just wasn't healthy enough, and now he's really not healthy. And Paul Richardson might be the real deal, guys. Not a great regular season by any stretch. Very, very pedestrian. And then these playoffs, man, we might have something. We might have something that can replace Jermaine Kearse and possibly Tyler Lockett next year. And thank God for that. So those are basically like the receivers that I want to talk about. And I don't want to lose track of the fact that these guys are very good despite all the problems that we had. And finally, on offense, the turd blossom, as they would call it in Texas. Justin Britt moved positions 3 times in his career, or twice. He started at tackle, moved to guard, moved to center. Hasn't been able to find his home. He found his home. One of the better centers in this league this season. Very solid play at the center position, and he can get better. He's entering his 4th year. He's going to get to stay as a center this year. If he can be a top 10 center next year, top 8, something like that, that would mean so much to this offense. And whatever good stuff you saw from the offensive line this year on a consistent basis was probably that dude. So yeah. Everyone else on the offensive line, I'm not really going to say anything nice about because they're way too inconsistent. But that guy has been the rock on the offensive line, and shout out to him. Defense. Defense was not the monstrous unit that we're used to seeing. It wasn't. There were a couple defenses this year that were clearly better and more productive. There were a couple of defenses that just plain played better. But before we get to the negatives, the things we need to fix, the holes we need to fill, Bobby Wagner, KJ Wright, probably the two best linebacker, the 1-2 linebacker combo in Seahawks history. Bobby Wagner led the league in tackles, 167, 4.5 sacks. He had a pick. He had a fumble recovery. He blocked a field goal. I mean, he could win Defensive Player of the Year, and it would be completely warranted and justified. He had a Luke Kuechly type year. Maybe not in coverage, but nobody does coverage as a linebacker like Luke Kuechly. So, and then KJ Wright, 126 tackles, 4 sacks, 5 pass defense, forced fumble. He doesn't get the spotlight like some of these other linebackers do because he just does his job. And week in and week out, he's getting 7 tackles, 8 tackles. He's pressuring the quarterback on blitzes. He gets beat up a little bit in coverage sometime, but he's asked to do a lot in coverage in some of these games. So salute those guys, because even though the defense was not what we wanted it to be this year, those guys were every bit of what we wanted this year. Richard Sherman and Deshaun Shedd. Jeremy Lane let us down this year. He gave up some stuff. I don't think he played that well. So I'm going to talk about 2 guys who I think manned up. Richard Sherman, now we know, playing through a major injury this season. Did not play his best football the second half of the season because of that, but he gutted through it. Still had 4 picks, still 13 passes defensed. Great tackling, great coverage. Maybe he wasn't the best cornerback in the league this year, but with the injury he was dealing with, I am more than happy to take what he gave us. And Deshaun Shedd, we asked so much of this dude, and it wasn't perfect, but he stepped up. He was a pretty good tackler out there. He was a hard hitter. He was tough in coverage, led the team in pass deflections with 14, had the ball thrown his way a lot, and he fought. He was one of the only 2 guys in the league to pick off Tom Brady this year, too. So Deshaun Shedd, he's not perfect, but how can you be perfect when you're playing across from Richard Sherman? It's just not going to happen. Frank Clark, Cliff Averill, Michael Bennett. If you want to be excited for something going into next year, be excited for this above all. Because this, teams would kill to have this kind of stuff going on. Cliff Averill, 11.5 sacks. He's probably on the just past the prime of his career, but he's still going to be good next year. Frank Clark, this is such a big deal for this team that we got a Frank Clark, who his rookie year, he played good. He was doing good things. This year, he breaks out 10 sacks, a couple of forced fumbles. Having that guy become a really good player, a really good pass rusher, could make or break this team going forward. And he's going to be around probably at least 2 more years, hopefully more. And finally, Michael Bennett, who was injured this season. He didn't play his best, we know, but still 5 sacks in limited play time, 9 tackles for loss, which almost led the team. He was just such a disruptive force, even if the numbers don't always indicate it. And that 1-2-3 gives you so much. Bennett, Clark, Averill. If we can add a pass rushing defensive tackle this offseason somehow, because that's where we lacked, this is going to be as deadly a pass rush as there is. We've got Atba Rubin, good run stuffer. We've got Jerron Reed, had a nice rookie season as a run stuffer. You got Cassius Marsh coming off the bench as a defensive end, and he's okay. If you can fill the pass rushing defensive tackle spot with somebody good, somebody like who we had a couple years ago with Tony McDaniel, he's not really that guy anymore. Somebody who can collapse the inside. Offenses are going to fear this defense again. That's basically all the really fun stuff I can talk about. I mean, we're still dealing with fears of, like I said, Tyler Lockett, Earl Thomas, Deshaun Shedd. We're just crossing our fingers they're ready to go for next year. We're crossing our fingers about the Richard Sherman draft pick situation. We're crossing our fingers with maybe a couple of free agents. I know Luke Wilson might go, which is not a huge deal, but if we let Jimmy Graham go, it would be a thing. We want to get better offensive liners in here, but let's focus on the good as well, because these guys, the guys I just mentioned, they did work this year. They fought. They fought to get us to double-digit wins. They fought to get us to the second round of the playoffs. All right. This video's gone on long enough, but if you're looking for something to feel good about, maybe this video will help you. We still have a very strong roster. Just for the first time in a while, we need to make it better. See you guys later.